Hi, everyone, and good morning. What a beautiful week in San Diego, huh? Welcome to day 2 of Coalesce. I'm Daniel Lee, CFO of DBT Labs. Now, before I go any further, you're all probably sitting in the room asking, what on earth is the CFO doing on stage at Coalesce? Shouldn't I be looking at expense reports, managing headcount open recs, or even looking at T&E policy? Now, given some of the parties that I've heard about over this past week, I may have to go back and audit some of those T&E expense reports. All right, let me start by telling you about my background and myself and how I got here. My family came to the United States when I was 3, first-generation immigrants, and my parents wanted to follow, the American dream. And so they came here and tried to jumpstart their life by becoming entrepreneurs. And so it started off with babysitting, and then eventually we got into dry cleaning, and then furniture stores, and then beauty supply shops and beauty salons. And as the only child, there was no babysitting. So I ended up having to go to work very early on. And I had so many different types of jobs, from stocking shelves to cashier to janitorial, and then eventually bookkeeping. But one of the things that I was super excited about was helping to maintain inventory. And I did that maintaining this notebook, where I would keep track of the things that would come in and out of our various shops. And essentially, this notebook was a data warehouse before I even knew what it was. And I would update that a few times each week, as I mentioned. And I really enjoyed that. And I learned early on that it gave me a lot of insights into how the business was doing. And so, most importantly, I was able to help influence the business. And I was a data practitioner before I even knew what it was. And we didn't have access to all of the tools available today. And we had to make most business decisions on gut feel, anticipating customer needs, anticipating trends. Now, fast forward to today, where data is extremely important to run a business. In my role at DBT Labs, I oversee all of the G&A functions, which includes finance, accounting, operations, legal, enterprise systems, and IT, and the data team. It's extremely critical that we have access to the right data and make business decisions in real time. I'd like to think that the early parts of my career, where I was a data practitioner, just like you all, has helped me build the right foundation to ensure that we're successful in making this happen. So today, I'm going to talk about 3 key areas: what is happening in the macro environment, how data, finance, and operations can collaborate effectively, and the most important thing here is real-world examples that we're using in terms of DBT Labs on DBT. So what is this? No surprise here that tech multiples have compressed over the past 2 years. As interest rates has gone up, investors are starting to shift dollars elsewhere. And this year has been extremely challenging for software companies, or for all companies, as the shift from growth at all costs to sustainable growth has occurred at breakneck speed. Businesses are now expected to balance growth with the right investments to drive long-term value. This puts a heavy focus on analytics and using data to drive key decisions. And transformation is more important than it's ever been. Companies want access to data more than ever. And as a CFO, I can't make decisions on gut feel like I did with my parents' business and that notebook that I used to maintain. Now more than ever, teams are being pushed to evolve as profitability becomes the new standard. But the reality is that all successful businesses have needed to be profitable. The past couple of years has just been a blip. There's increased urgency to drive automation in the cost centers of our business and empower our teams to do more with less, as we've seen with all the layoffs that has happened over the past 2 years. So, to set the tone for today's event, I want to share this quote from Roland Busch, who's the CEO of Siemens. And when I talk about sustainable business, this company's been around for almost 200 years. 200 years. Here he states that the more digital our world becomes, the faster we need to learn. And of course, the foundation of learning is information. And data is becoming more and more one of the most critical assets inside of an organization. So what does that mean for people like yourselves? Let me set the stage for you. Many data teams are familiar with collating data, calculating metrics on website sessions, product usage, and campaign analytics, customer satisfaction. What most data teams might not know is then finance and operations take this information and create a sales forecast. This information can be a leading indicator of new customer product adoption and existing customer retention. But how is that data transformation work being done? I don't want to generalize, but I would say that most of the time, the work is being done in Excel or something equivalent. While we have many innovations in the modern data stack, finance and operations have been left in the data stone age. These groups would just as easily benefit from things like automation, version control, testing, all of the things that we've been accustomed to in the modern data stack. Business leaders, such as myself, needs help to operate more efficiently and effectively. And it is essential that data team members and business leaders communicate and collaborate effectively. So what is the foundation of successful interactions between these two teams? It is my belief that both sides need to lean in. Data team members need to learn more about the business, what their customers' needs, and business leaders need to better understand what a data warehouse is, how it operates, and all of its potential capabilities. My guess is that most of you at least partially agree with me, and that is why you're here today. So I want to applaud you for being intentional about this effort to learn. So this is one of my favorite slides. So this is G&A spend as a percentage of revenue over the past 20 years. No surprise, there's been hundreds, if not thousands, of applications that have promised to drive efficiency across our back office teams. And as you can see, it's actually increased over time. This creates an interesting set of dynamics that we should all be thinking about as data practitioners. We need to think about how we can shift from surviving the current macro conditions to realizing how we can actually thrive in them. And let me share 3 recommendations for how to make this happen. First, profitability has been the new standard. So we also run the risk of just finding ways to cut costs to get to this outcome. This can actually lead to diminishing returns. I'd argue that in some situations, that's the last thing we should do. The focus for our team and how we're aiming to get around this is to shift from our data team being viewed as a cost center to actually a value driver. So my advice to you all is to talk to your stakeholders, understand what they're concerned about, and what problems they're looking to solve. And you'll be able to identify ways to help solve their problems, and as a result, deliver value that was otherwise going to go unrealized. Second, make it easy for your stakeholders to access their data. With our semantic layer, dbt Explorer, and our data mesh framework, this helps deliver a single source of truth to ensure consistency across all of the various data sets, and further enables self-service. This makes it easy for organizations to have access to the right data in a timely way. Third, it's paramount that we find ways to drive efficiencies, which has the downstream effect of improving profits. I've had the opportunity to see some of your breakout presentations yesterday, and there are a lot of examples of how teams are finding ways to be more efficient. Several of you have shared examples of how you've optimized your dbt projects or used dbt to help optimize your underlying platform costs. In short, we should always be seeking ways to eliminate low value add work and boost delivery velocity. So on the left, you see a traditional IT architecture. As I mentioned, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of SaaS applications that have been created over the past 20 plus years. And so all these applications are manually stitched together. Data is not in a centralized source. On the right side is a data warehouse-centric approach. When I came here, I said, okay, if I need access to all the data, how do I put it in a way where we have a single source of truth? How do we keep things simple? And leveraging dbt, having access to all of that in one place. And that will allow you to scale over time. So what is this? This is a familiar finance and operations tech stack. On the left, you have all your source systems, and then you have spreadsheets, which many of us are still involved in. And then you have a form of a planning system, your data warehouse, and your BI tool. So you have ops users looking at data in different places. You have finance users looking at data in different places. And then you have data users as well. This is a very complex and fragmented way of doing things. I believe this is the future of how organizations should think about their tech stack. So you have your source systems, you leverage the data warehouse, and you leverage dbt, and everyone is looking at the data in a very similar way. And then that allows you to feed it to your planning system and your business insights tools as well. Everything I've told you so far is fairly academic. And as the title of this session would suggest, we live these beliefs and we put them into action using our own software. I truly believe that in order to build the next great company, we need to use dbt to help realize that dream. Our analytics and operations finance teams use dbt in various ways to streamline how we work with data and deliver analytics across our business. I'm going to invite a couple of my colleagues up here to walk you through these. First, you'll hear about marketing and some of the ROI analytics that we're doing in real time. And then you'll learn about how we're optimizing our data architecture. And then we'll close out by hearing about how our finance is using dbt to solve headcount, which is something that I have not solved in 20 plus years, except for here, and revenue recognition. So to share how dbt is helping marketing get a complete 360 view of our marketing campaigns, I'd like to welcome Brandon to the stage.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you today and to share with you an example of a data product that we've built for our marketing team here at DBT Labs. Thank you, Daniel. So as Daniel alluded to earlier, marketing teams now more than ever are expected to perform with peak efficiency in mind. Teams today are being asked to assist in reducing customer acquisition costs by identifying cost-efficient campaigns and channels to double down on while cutting the rest. They're being asked to assist in increasing average contract values by better understanding our ideal customer profile and generating demand from those accounts that have a higher propensity to buy. And lastly, as we all know on a marketing team, efficiency equals profit. Teams are being asked to do this with less headcount and less budget than before. So they need to be able to make these decisions and optimize spend in an efficient and timely manner. Just 12 months ago, this is what our world looked like here at DBT Labs. As the sole analytics engineer on the marketing analytics team, I was getting asked questions like, hey, how many pipeline opportunities has my campaign driven this quarter? Or which of these leads have been followed up with after my event? And then from the paid media teams, hey, which channel is driving the most new contacts? I'm sure these questions feel familiar to a lot of you, especially if you work with marketing or go-to-market teams. And as you know, they can take a lot of time to answer. Oftentimes it was pulling me away from higher leverage work or that big project I was working on. And if you need proof, I kept the receipts. So this is an exchange between Jackie. Jackie is our manager of integrated campaigns and myself. While she was trying to compare email performance across a single campaign, she just wasn't able to, or at least not able to with confidence. So she slid into my DMs, asked me for some help, and like I did back then, I helped her out. This, as you know, was not an ideal state. So what does our world look like today? Well, fast forward 12 months, Jackie and I don't talk anymore. No, but in all reality, just 4 months after this previous message was sent, I realized I haven't talked to Jackie in a while. And actually, this stemmed from I logged on a Monday, and I was going through our marketing monthly performance report. And I remember seeing this beautiful campaign recap in there from the month, like all the campaigns we ran, KPIs, stats, visuals, clear action items. All I could think of was, I don't remember doing any of this. So I went to the edit history, and I scrolled down, and sure enough, Jackie had done this all on her own. So she went from struggling to understand how to compare email performance across a single campaign to completing a full monthly campaign recap report and providing all these insights on our own. And really, this is what makes me incredibly proud to be an analytics engineer at exchanges like this, where we're empowering our team to become those data people, even if they don't think of themselves as data people. So how did we get here? In between those two messages, we set out to build a new product aimed at empowering our marketing team to self-serve their own campaign insights. And to us, we call this product our Campaign 360. Our Campaign 360 is a one-stop shop for all of our marketing campaign information. We're talking paid media performance, organic social posts, pipeline reporting, web traffic, product usage behavior, attribution models, all of it contained in a single location. This dashboard is easy to use. It requires, at minimum, just a single filter to operate. And it's intuitive, it's informative, and it's designed specifically to help answer the next question for our stakeholders. So what were we seeking to solve by doing so? First, our main goal was to improve the accuracy and consistency of our measurement reporting so that we could reduce miscommunication and the misinterpretation of results. Two, we set out to empower our marketing stakeholders to self-serve their own campaign insights without the need for any specialized or technical skills. And three, maybe selfishly, we wanted to free up our operations and data teams so that we could focus on building products for the future instead of spending a lot of our time reporting on the past. Now I want to show you just a quick glimpse on how we were able to do this using dbt and dbt Cloud. First is an example of a macro we created. In this macro, I don't expect you to be able to read it yet, but in this macro, what we're doing is we're basically parsing a campaign nomenclature in a single location so that we can reference it in any downstream models. We specifically align this macro to parse that nomenclature the exact same way that our operations team had set up a UTM builder where our stakeholders are defining their campaigns. So by doing so, we're able to ensure that we have consistent outputs with the inputs from our stakeholders. We leverage packages heavily, especially early in the development process. The ad reporting, organic social, and HubSpot email packages created by the community. Shout out team at Fivetran, package maintainers. I'm eternally grateful for you, and I'm sure a lot of you are as well. We found that these packages at times could get us nearly 80% of the way there. We could take the end nodes of what they've provided, slap some business logic on the end, and we're pretty much off to the races. In the end, I would argue that packages saved us weeks of development time. And as we all know, right now, those weeks are valuable. And lastly, of course, we wrote documentation alongside of our dbt models and columns. Specifically, we wrote documentation in a way that our stakeholders can understand. And I think that's an important point. They're the ones that are often going to be in here seeing how can a model best be utilized, how's a column being defined or a metric being calculated. So we made sure that we could have effective communication with those stakeholders instead of having them, once again, reach out in the DMs and ask us for clarification. We also made sure to link out to more context-heavy resources in the docs. So linking out to Notion docs or Loom videos or wikis. In case someone needs more context, they're able to do so. And now, as you've all seen yesterday through dbt Explorer, this information is even easier to access and comprehend than ever before. So how do we know if we've been successful? Well, up until now, over 94% of dashboard usage for the Campaign 360 is coming from non-data team members. And to us, that's a huge accomplishment. This is the proof that we've been able to reduce the dependency on our data and operations teams, and that our stakeholders are doing their own reporting. You know, we saw proof before with Jackie's message, but now I brought the quantitative proof as well. So now our data and operations teams are freed up. We can focus on building new data products or handling more advanced analytics use cases. And in the end, we're still involved. We're just not doing campaign recap reporting anymore, which is a win-win for both parties. So I want to thank you all for your time today. I will be doing a deeper dive on our Campaign 360 and some of the technical implementation details on this stage today at 3:30. So if you're interested, I hope to see you there. Thanks all.
y'all hear me? That was incredible. Thank you, Brandon. Now, that's just one example of how we're powering DBT Labs with DBT. Across all of our teams, we're always looking for ways to optimize our data architecture. In my conversations with our customers, optimization has been a primary focus for all of them. We just had our customer advisory board meeting earlier this week. I think we spent like half the time talking about platform optimization. It's extremely relevant in these times. So next up, I would like to invite Elise, who's our senior data engineer, to talk about some examples where we were able to optimize for significant benefits. Elise, welcome.
All right. What's up, data people? Like Daniel said, my name's Elise. I'm a senior data engineer here at DBT Labs, and I'm here to talk to you today about how we optimize the performance of our DBT project running on Snowflake. All right, let's get the most important thing out of the way first. At DBT Labs, our data team loves to use DBT. We're also early adopters of the tool. The first commit to our team's project was in 2016. Today, we have over 1,200 models, over 2,000 tests, and it is growing. Some of our oldest models were built when the rows for those tables were in the thousands. Today, those rows are in the billions. We run our DBT project on Snowflake, and about 6 months ago, we started to experience some performance degradation with these older, larger models. This is what that looked like. This is a graph of our average runtime for our main DBT Cloud job. We run the job every 4 hours, and you can see the job was dangerously close to that 4-hour threshold. This became both a cost and efficiency concern because we don't want to run the job for 24 hours a day. I'm going to show you how we took the findings in March and April of this year and implemented some performance optimizations in May and June to bring our average DBT Cloud runtime down. Okay. The first thing to know is that the infrastructure to do this is already available. DBT and Snowflake together give us the resources we need to accomplish this work. Your first instinct may be to go into your project and refactor code, but if your project is anywhere near the size of ours, or maybe even larger, you're going to have a hard time finding where to put those resources. So let's talk about the infrastructure we can use here first. This is a high-level view of the tools we used to optimize the performance of our DBT Cloud project. First, we used Snowflake query tags. This is the most important part. We create a one-to-one relationship between a DBT model invocation and the Snowflake query ID object. This is going to be essential for doing any type of analysis of the performance of your project. Second, we use Snowflake's metadata views and model them in DBT. It gets really meta. We have DBT projects evaluating, or DBT models evaluating the performance of a DBT project. But this does enable us to identify trends in the Snowflake query statistics. It also enabled us to codify performance thresholds so everyone on our team knew exactly when we wanted to boost up the compute resources. Finally, when it comes to boosting those compute resources, DBT gives us configurations that make it really easy to do it out of the box with very little work. We also have control over how we materialize our objects into the data warehouse, which we did find the performance optimization efforts gave us a nice flag on when it was time to bump from a table to an incremental model. Okay, next we'll review the outcome of this work. We had some big wins without refactoring a single model. And I mean, these were like really big wins. The results I'm going to share are from a rollout to all of our models. There's a lot of knobs we can turn, like I just said. We can emphasize, or we can manipulate the Snowflake compute warehouse resource, and we can also change the model's materialization strategy. And this is what we found when we implemented this in May and June of this year. We optimized only 26 models out of almost 1,300. That's a small fraction of our project that accounted for all of that performance degradation we were experiencing. Not all of the models we tried to optimize had results, though. And we found those were the models that were the best candidates for applying our human resources and refactoring. Second, we managed to reduce the average runtime of our main dbt Cloud job by 45% to just over 2 hours. And the exciting thing about that is it gives us space to grow and a lot of space to add to our project. Finally, all of this efficiency gains translated to approximately $22,000 in annual savings. Although it may sound counterintuitive, using larger compute resources in Snowflake, resulting in more performant and efficient queries, will actually translate to savings in the long term. Okay, but it wasn't just compute resources and dbt models that we optimized. We also optimized the way our team works together. We've observed a deeper understanding of the Snowflake platform within our data team, and a lot of folks are really excited to go peek at the query profile now. We can summarize our team outcomes in these 3 categories. First, we are able to provide prescriptive recommendations for optimization to everyone on the team. The thing that really excites me about this is we draw a clear line in the sand to say yes or no, we should upgrade the compute resources we're using. We surface this to the team in a Hex app that's straightforward to use, and nobody has to repeat the analysis. It's just there for them when they log in on Monday. Second, we've noticed a transformation in how our team thinks about adding to our project. We're no longer just thinking about building dbt models, but thinking about building dbt models that run on Snowflake. I really like this one because going deeper in this stack is a dbt Labs core value, and we've seen a lot of folks on our team get extra excited to go deeper and understand how Snowflake works. Finally, human resources on our team, just like all of yours, are extremely limited. We are using our human resources more effectively by understanding where putting human time is going to have the most payoff. To dive deeper into this and the technical details, please check out my session in this room at 2:30. And with that, I'll send it back to Daniel.
Thank you so much, Elise. I'm sure you'll all agree there's a lot of very good practical advice in what she shared. Hopefully, you'll be able to leverage some of our learning to drive optimizations for your own dbt projects. Now, the last example we'd like to share is an operational one. Yes, that's right. We use dbt to streamline our finance and operations. Our own finance team is using dbt for some very impressive results. To walk you through how, please join me in welcoming Sarah, VP of Strategy and Finance, to the stage.
All right, thanks, Daniel. And good morning, everyone. Those are 2 very tough acts to follow, hearing from 2 of the amazing members of our data team, but I'm going to do my best. And really, it's because the data team at dbt is incredible. They not only empower us to do the best we can with amazing data solutions that are how we run our day-to-day, they also actually empower our teams to automate and own their own workflows within dbt. And this is something that is really important in the finance and data relationship because we are increasingly more reliant on all of you. And as Elise just mentioned, our data team runs lean and mean, and so we need to be careful with their resources. And historically, we have been those bad actors asking questions like, can you point me to this data source? Can you help me tie out versus my Excel file? And when was the last time this was updated? And so as we stepped back and asked ourselves, how do we improve the velocity of both our finance and our data teams, we agreed that we needed to get all of our business logic in one location in dbt, and that once those solutions were built, we needed teams to be able to maintain that on their own so the data team could continue moving on and building in new areas of the business. So I'm going to talk about 2 key use cases today where we've made major strides and shaved days of time away for several of our team members. The first is workforce planning automation, which sounds simple, but all growing companies do it, right? We need to figure out how big is our team, how much do we need to grow, and which teams are executing successfully towards those goals. And the second one is revenue recognition, which sounds simple, but is highly regulated and is often something that requires tons of time from our operational teams and a lot of expensive resources, both on internal team members and external auditors. So we'll start out with workforce analytics. Again, it's something that seems simple. How many people are here? Who's hiring them? But it actually is something that's quite complex because we've got several different teams working together as a part of the process. A lot of companies have a process that looks kind of like this. We've got our recruiting team working in an applicant tracking system, sourcing candidates, getting them through the funnel. We've got our HR team working in an HRIS, like an ADP or a Workday. And you've got your finance team who's doing their job in an EPM solution like an Anaplan, an Adaptive, or a Pigment. All three of these things may have different definitions for something as simple as what is a hire? And at the time, we were bringing them all into one big clunky Excel spreadsheet that we updated not that often. And on its best day, our business stakeholders were digging through a spreadsheet looking for what's going on with my team? Am I on track to hit my goals? And they weren't able to see that data in the BI tools where they're being served the rest of their business insights. So with DBT, we were able to spend some time aligning on the business logic up front. We were able to get it all into our data warehouse so that we were all staring at a single source of truth data set. And we can now leverage that to power BI tools for the hiring managers at the company so that they're getting their data where they're getting the rest of their data. And that's been huge in the throughput of our teams in executing against our hiring goals. And on top of that, our finance team can set the cadence for how this updates. We've moved from weeks to hours of data freshness. And it's been tremendous in empowering the teams to do more. All right, the next one is revenue recognition, which may not mean a ton to the folks in this crowd, but if you are a finance person, it can make you shake in your boots. And it's because it is always the process that has your CFO tapping their foot 1 week, 2 weeks after the end of the quarter, saying, where are my financials? And so we knew that this is something that we wanted to automate early and to make as streamlined as we possibly could. But that's a challenge because one of the things that is tough about accounting data is it is highly regulated. You need really clean change management and audit trails, and that's often why these processes become so cumbersome. But in finance, what we call change management and audit trails would make data practitioners and software engineers laugh out loud. We're screenshotting report screens, pulling them into Excel spreadsheets, and paying auditors tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to dig through them. It is a broken process and something that we knew we could fix with DBT. So this is where we started. It looks kind of simple enough on the face. We have 2 point-of-sale systems. We use Stripe and we use Salesforce. We were bringing them into a big spreadsheet to do all of our revenue recognition. We're then doing our manual revenue reconciliations and allocations there, piping it into yet another spreadsheet, and putting it in NetSuite. What's tough about that is each one of those Excel icons is more risk, right? Each place, there's somewhere where someone could fat finger some logic. There's somewhere where we could change something and miss it. And ultimately, there's a lot of risk in these processes, which is why they're so slow. We have to be extremely careful. So what we decided was that if we could bring all of this into DBT, we could build one consolidated revenue data set that automatically generates all of our allocations and revenue reconciliations. And we could take the time spent on those processes from days to hours. And so it's made our financial processes extremely more efficient. And on top of that, we have, by finance standards, extremely sophisticated audit trails and change management practices because we get to use GitHub, which is built for that. It's another place where software engineers and data practitioners' change management practices are well above what we're doing in finance. And it makes it significantly easier for us to actually take this and just hand it off to our auditors, and that saves us a bunch of expense on the back end as well. On top of that, we actually have 4 members of our accounting team in DBT Cloud who can manage the refresh cadences and how changes reflect in their models, and that takes time basically towards their team and gives the data team more capacity to continue to automate as we scale. We're really excited about those 2 things because that alone has given our team back weeks of time, but there's more to come. These are 5 use cases that we are actively working on right now. Most of them will deploy in the next quarter or 2. We're automating our accruals. We're doing more with advanced revenue allocations as our product portfolio expands. We're streamlining our sales capacity modeling, usage revenue predictions, and even commissions calculations. And so as we move forward, we're extremely excited to continue partnering with the data team to keep our teams as efficient as they possibly can be, and to see where else we can bring our core business logic into one place. And with that, I'll hand it back to Daniel.
Thank you, Sarah. 3 very different examples of how we're using DBT to power DBT Labs. What you might not know is we've passed 2 audits over the past 2 years, and our auditors said to me, this is the cleanest process and documentation we've ever seen, ever, for a company of your size. And so we're actively looking at projects in support. Our security team is going all in, and legal as well, as we believe that DBT can help us there. Each examples you've heard on stage here, we also have a breakout session for today. So I encourage you to go look at the schedule and join one of those to learn more. This is one of my favorite values here at DBT. If you go to our website, we have a lot of values, but this value has always resonated with me ever since I started working. It's called moving up the stack. And this business partnership triangle is something that you've all seen throughout your entire career. What does the bottom area mean? It means the transactional stuff, the stuff that we have to do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. I always challenge my team, everything you have to do more than once, find a way to automate it. Because that way, it'll free up your bandwidth to move up the stack, to focus not just on reporting, but to focus on providing business insights, learning more about what your stakeholders need, lean in, and the most important part is to be a strategic advisor. You want to anticipate your business as well as your stakeholders, and your skills will complement each other. So to recap, we talked about 3 key things: what's happening in the macro environment and how we can all thrive, data, finance, and operations collaborating effectively, and my favorite, real-world examples that's driving real business outcomes. Profitability is the new standard, but in reality, it's always been the standard. Visibility is paramount. You can't make things off of gut feel. I have to find that notebook one of these days. And efficiency unlocks profits. So these are the lessons learned that I want you at all take with you. Don't be afraid to invest in systems and processes that will scale early on. Ensure that there's an automation mindset in place. This mindset will be embedded in your team's DNA and will help you develop the right approach as they grow and as your organization grows. Don't be afraid to get deep in the business. Business context and communication is more valuable than just technical skills alone. And make sure the work that you're doing is driving real business outcomes. Measure yourself often and iterate along the way. I always tell my team, do not be afraid to make mistakes, but most importantly, apply those lessons learned going forward. It'll make you even stronger. And so I want data, ops, and finance, and all the G&A teams to figure out how to lean in, collaborate, and learn from each other, and challenge yourself to push things forward. And so thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of Coalesce. And before I leave, please welcome Quinn back to the stage.